But it's a bad thing now because people can just say them without any pushback, and then they can appear to be on our side. And you really got to dig deep to find out what's really going on. I mean, most people don't have time. Like, I barely have time to do something like this. Barely have time to put together anything and be able to present it between work and family life and chores, washing dishes, and all things that someone like Nancy Pelosi hasn't done probably in years. I hope my connection's better. Maybe I should close the stream and start it over. If you're in the chat, let me know if I'm still cutting in and out. Um, we can trace back to the Roman Empire and to its eventual fall. A lot of the things that we're seeing from our country now, and a lot of it is just it's arrogance. It's the arrogance of the ruling class. Imagine a man seeing the fall of a city, one of the most powerful cities in the world, that he was given the privilege of ruling, to be more upset with a pet chicken than the death of many, many of his citizens. And that's how the people that rule us are. They would be more upset with the death of their dog. They would be more upset with not being able to get their favorite ice cream than they would be for all the homeless people that litter the streets, all of the mental institutions that are shut down, and people like Cuomo in New York, people like Gavin Newsom in California. They remove funding for mental health institutions, and a lot of those mental health institutions were not great. They weren't always funded and or run well, at least. But they remove the funding for these things, and they leave people out on the street, people with real serious mental health issues. I mean, a lot of the people that are homeless that we see, they need help. They may not be capable of supporting themselves like you and I were, or you and I are, um, because they were kicked out of these state-funded, government-funded institutions when they cut and shut these places down. It's sad that the priorities are twisted, and that's another thing that you can trace back to Rome. They're one of the reasons that they fell is because of their bloated military expenditures. And you see, the U.S. is so obsessed with having the biggest and most powerful military in the world. We have bases everywhere. We want to maintain this stranglehold on the global economy. The only way we get away with all of this printing of money and without seeing massive, massive amounts of inflation, a lot of it you can trace back to the petrodollar. And the reason that we're so angry at countries like Russia and Iran and China is because they threaten to upset that balance, and that would seriously lower the value of the dollar. And it wouldn't allow us to be as exploitative of other countries on a global scale and to maintain this massive military presence. So that's one of the main reasons. That's for all this anti-China propaganda, all this anti-Russia propaganda. It just comes from back to greed. So Julian Assange is in prison for exposing that military-industrial complex and the crimes of war and the people that are killed from war. So I want to open up one of these windows here and just take a look at the human cost and the human toll. I may have lost a window. Oh, no. Oh, no. It's stable axle rod. I think it's here. Oh. Here we go. So this is from the Watson Institute, and these are the costs of war. And this is what happened after 9/11. Now, 9/11 was a gift to the patricians, to the oligarchs, to the ruling class. It was a gift to them. As tragic as it was, they capitalized on crisis. They capitalized on the COVID crisis to send trillions of dollars upwards to the top 10% or 1/10 of 1% of the citizens in this country. I think right now there are three people, three billionaires. I think Jeff Bezos is close to being a trillionaire that own more than 50% of the wealth in this country. They're hoarding. They're hoarding all of the money to themselves. They could end world hunger with a snap of their fingers, and they choose not to. So never allow them to toss some crumbs to a charity and think that that justifies their greed. And they didn't get there by being nice or being good businessmen. They got there by crushing out their competition. Bill Gates was in several lawsuits as the head of Microsoft for basically crushing out all of the competition against them with technology and software development. So that man is just he's a vicious person. He is a vicious capitalist, and he only cares for money. I mean, these people are devoid of moral values. Well, they believe in this Randian kind of philosophy that self determination and their own advancement, their own gain is the purpose of life. Even Nietzsche exposed ideas like that, like the will to power being the end goal of man. And I think most of us plebeians, most of us plebes down at the bottom, we don't know our power. We don't know our power because we're propagandized. We don't know our power, and we can't mobilize effectively because we allow corrupted organizations and corrupted politicians to tell us when and where we can do things, to tell us what protest is good and what protest is bad, to bog us down in just intellectual games, discussing terminology and discussing ideas without any ever taking any action. And it's a tactic. It's a way to stifle a real revolution. A real revolution requires a massive amount of people coordinating with each other to stand up to the system. And you cannot coordinate under someone who is for the establishment. Someone like AOC will never mobilize for a real grassroots demonstration. She'll never send out a tweet. She'll never mobilize her email list or her followers to actually send people out on the streets for something like end the damn wars, for a cause like freeing Julian Assange. And organizations like TYT, they claim to be progressive champions, but they fold when it comes to someone like Julian Assange. They fold on Julian Assange because they say that he was a Trump supporter. But there is a story that's going around, and I don't know how much validity there is to it, but it's believable that Trump actually offered to free Julian, not to prosecute him, if he revealed his sources for the WikiLeaks. The WikiLeaks. It was I believe, the DNC emails, and he refused. And he shows real courage, and these are the kind of leaders that we really need. We have to look at their actions, but we have to look at what they actually do when the rubber hits the road. Do they get into Congress and just talk like politicians and use this word salad bullshit to kind of worm their way out of any accountability while voting for war, while voting for the increase of military budgets, while chastising people like their children? AOC did that. She chastised people who were supporters of Bernie under this civility doctrine, this doctrine of civility. I got to tell you, real change is messy, and it requires people to get past these petty grievances and these little sensitivities. Think about the civil rights protest. These people got out on the street. African Americans, they got out on the street and they withstood fire hoses being blasted at them, police taking batons and beating them, the murder of their leaders, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., both shot. And still, they prevailed, and they continued to fight, and they continued to fight. They didn't get discouraged. They didn't all get into little groups and discuss, well, this is the author that I think has the best ideas on such and such a thing, and I think that you disagree with me on points A, B, and C. You agree on the rest, but those points are really important to me. So why don't we have a few more committee meetings? Why don't we have a few more conversations about this before we actually get out onto the street? Oh, no, 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 no. The wrong person mobilized this civil rights protest, so we're not going to go. Oh, this person insulted so and so, and I really hold so and so in high esteem, so I'm not going to get out on the street because this protest is not legitimate. Resist the gatekeepers. Politics is a transitional. It is a transitional act. You promise me to do something, you do it, good, I will continue to support you. You promise me you're going to do something, and I find out that you lied to me, and you're just getting comfortable enjoying this status of celebrity, you should immediately lose all respect. But there's a whole nother economy built, just like the Telecommunications Act that Bill Clinton signed into law, consolidated power of the media even more than it already was. And the media, we all know, manufactures consent for things like war. They manufacture consent for things like the military budget. How can all of these politicians continue to vote in favor of raising by billions and billions of dollars the military budget each year without any blowback, any pushback? The pushback is very, very light. They can do that because there is a system of propaganda that exists, and people are propagandized by it. And they're taught to believe that war is good, that we're righteous, that we're there for a good cause. But the truth is that we're not. We're there to make money for a few people. We're there to make money for Amazon and Alphabet Inc. and Intel and Microsoft. And just remember, Alphabet Inc., the second largest contributor to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez this year. Companies like Intel, Microsoft, Boeing, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin. These are the organizations that control politicians, and they make massive and massive amounts of money from war. In Afghanistan, $3 billion for Fluor Corp, $1.7 billion for Amentum Parent Holdings, $970 million for Columbia Helicopters Inc., $930 million for PAA Inc., $830 million for Raytheon Technologies Corporation. Look at who is funding her. So she has become an obedient servant. She is a plebeian. She is a member of the working class. But instead of getting into office and fighting against the patricians and the people that oppress us, she chose to become a client, an obedient servant of the patrician family or this elite establishment that exists. Why would she take money from them? So I found an interesting fact, and this is, I'm going to kind of transition a little bit into Obama, because Obama is the number one cause for Trump, in my opinion, and I don't think that he should be able to escape that. I mean, he was president before Trump came out. So I'm going to check out my stream, though. Let me jump in here. Let me make sure everything's not, like, super laggy. This might get a little bit annoying if you're still watching me, so you might want to mute yourself or mute the screen just for a minute. Let me see how it's working. This might get a little bit annoying if you're still watching me, so you might want to mute yourself or mute the screen just for a minute. Let me see how it's working. All right, it's not bad. Here's a fun little did you know. Did you know over half of all U.S. presidents were lawyers? Barack Obama studied at Harvard Law School. Harvard Law School is a place that cultivates the elite classes. He was not a champion of the people. He's a trained lawyer. What's a synonym for lawyer? It's liar. Trained liars. Over half of our presidents were lawyers. Now, there are good lawyers out there. There's a man named Stephen Donziger who's been on house arrest for more than 2 years for winning a judgment for the people of, I believe, of Ecuador. And they're allowing, in the United States, they're actually allowing a court run by Chevron, run by an oil company, to prosecute him. I never knew something like that could even be possible. So not only do these companies, these oil companies and weapons manufacturers, have undue influence over all of our leaders, they can actually, and they're being allowed to prosecute a man who won a judgment against them for destroying the livelihoods of farmers in Ecuador. If you stand up to the system and you accomplish your task, the blowback is incredible. And that's why we need to be banded together. And that's why it's not just sour grapes to point out that the DSA leadership has been corrupted and that their movement has been neutered. It's not sour grapes to point out how AOC has been completely co-opted by powerful influences. These things are not sour grapes. It's important for us to know because we need to show them that we see what they're doing and we need to punish them for it. And punishing them for it is to stop donating to them and to stop voting for them so that they can see and so that we can make a statement. And so that the next time a Justice Democrat or whatever iteration of um, that type of action is, that if you get in there, we're watching you. And if you screw up, we're going to kick you out. We have the power to do that still in this country, even though our freedoms have been severely diminished. 9/11 was a gift to the oligarchs. It allowed them to pass the Patriot Act. It allowed them to establish mass surveillance. Right now, they want to push that even further. And they're going to use any crisis they can to achieve their goals. Something like COVID kills so many people. It causes so much destabilization of economies. The capitalists don't like that, but they also see it as an opportunity to funnel trillions of dollars up to the top. And they want a working class struggling paycheck to paycheck so that they can't do things like this, so that they can't educate themselves, so that they can't choose or try to educate others. Their goal is to keep people oppressed and passive and to neuter movements. So this is what I challenge you to do. Think about what kind of measures could we take if we run someone like AOC again, if we run someone who represents us, not one of the chosen few from Harvard, not another lawyer trained to use rhetoric and with great oratory skills to use a lot of words to say essentially nothing, to keep people placated, to make people feel like they have someone in power that cares about them, while behind the scenes, stabbing us all in the back, just like the leaders did in Rome. Obama was elected, and he chose to disband Obama for America. This is an article from the New Republic, and it says, Edley, who was a man that taught Obama. There's a guy that taught Obama when he was in Harvard Law School, one of his professors. His name was Christopher Edley. Here's the video from him here. So let me go back to the article. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. I'm going to have to leave soon because I do have a work appointment. And maybe we'll come back in a little bit. But let me just give a little preview. Maybe later on tonight or tomorrow I'll be able to come back and do another stream and kind of wrap all this up. AOC is using a playbook that Obama used, and Obama ran promising hope and change. But then he disbanded his grassroots organizations. He kicked all the people out that were real activists, people that really want change. And he takes on people like David Axelrod. He gets an email from Citigroup and he makes his cabinet according to what his corporate overlords wanted him to do. But there's a man named Christopher Edley who said this, and this was a man who advised Obama.
My hope is that the Obama administration will act from the beginning as though they understand the reality that judicial appointments are one of the very most significant parts of a president's legacy. It's because of the life tenure. And I hope that they will also learn the lesson, take a page from the Republican playbook, that when you fight for a nominee, and the fight is made about values, that actually strengthens you politically rather than weakening you.
We all know the history of the courts. We all know what happened by leaving these seats open, by not fighting hard enough. There was a point where they controlled and they had a supermajority in the Congress and in the Senate. And in Texas, they make abortion illegal with these federal judge appointments. Obama left 105 seats open in the courts. And he chose to ignore voices like this. And don't know much about Christopher Edley, and he may have some dark secrets. He may be one of those bourgeoisie left, or he may be an actual organizer. But what I do know is that when these people get into power, they drop the mask. They take on DC insiders that just play this game. It's just business as usual. It's like a big Ponzi scheme. Wash out the tax money and pass it to the powerful. Keep the people poor, keep them weak, keep them passive. But we saw empires crumble using this exact same playbook before. The thing that's different about us now is that we do have the internet. We do have platforms where we can mobilize. So, how do we do it? Well, that question remains to be answered. But one thing that I can do to anyone that hears me is to let you know that the DSA the leadership is not on your side. They would not fight for a cause that was written in their own playbook, and that was, yes, Force the Vote. Force the Vote exposed many organizations and many people for being what they are, useful idiots or controlled opposition for the establishment. They had an opportunity to leverage Nancy Pelosi's power and leverage their vote to achieve something big. And they did nothing. They did nothing. You can come up with some things, quote unquote, that they did, but what change did they accomplish? How did they continue to nurture the momentum of the movements that got them into power? Or have they allowed everyone to just go back to sleep? Do they want people to go back to sleep? Because they want to go on late night talk shows. They want to do interviews from Vanity Fair. They want to go to the Met Gala in a nice dress. But they will not get out on the streets and help the people and the causes that got them elected. And because of that, they should lose our support. We need to make these people afraid. Think of the allure of that lifestyle. Think of the allure of being a celebrity. We need people that are strong enough to resist. We need people that are willing to tell us inconvenient truths. And we need to go back through the past and find out, what playbook are they using to deceive us? What playbook are they using to keep us pacified and useless? What playbook are they using to neuter movements? As far as I'm concerned, any progressive organization, any socialist organization that coordinates and mobilizes and forms should never, for any reason, under any circumstances, welcome in with open arms leaders that have existed in the Democratic Party. These DNC operatives are only there to make your movement completely ineffective. And the tell the tell is when you're watching people, commentators, people that give you the news, and then your leaders. The tell is when it comes to these controversial subjects. When it comes to whistleblowers for a Syrian gas attack that Assad had no reason to commit because he didn't want to welcome the United States into his country to intervene and give them a reason to. And you have weapons inspectors on the ground that come back and tell the OPCW, which is supposed to be a watchdog organization for weapons, chemical weapons attacks, supposed to be trustworthy. These whistleblowers come up. We have good reporters like Aaron Matei who go through these documents, who go through these leaks. I saw one of them where the head of the OPCW, and it's viewable on WikiLeaks, says in an email to remove sections of the report from all databases and purge it. Those sections of the report were things that contradicted the narrative that Assad had gassed his own people. And that justified us ramping up military tension in that country, dropping bombs in that country. And if he did not do that, then there's a culprit out there that has not been caught. Someone got away with it. So, if you have principled people and objective people in power, or organizations that are principled and objective, they won't pile on and instantly say, you're not allowed to challenge the establishment. They'll look at things with open eyes, and this will tell you whether they have been infiltrated and completely co-opted by the system that they're there to fight, or whether they're only concerned for their own celebrity, their own paycheck, their own status, and that they're not real revolutionaries and they're not real progressive people. So beware when those types of things happen. Things like forced to vote, all the voices that came up and spoke against it, all mostly because they don't like Jimmy Dore. And so what? If there's a man that wants to tell you the truth, but you don't like the jokes he makes, or you don't like that he curses and says off-color things, so fucking what? TYT is guilty of doing disgusting things on their show, way worse than anything that Jimmy Dore ever did on his show. But even if it's an off-color person, I'm more likely to trust a person who's a little bit rough around the edges because they're probably a little bit more like me. They're probably more of a plebeian and less of a patrician. We have a lot of power if we can unite, and we can only remain united if we fight against these organizations that set themselves up as gatekeepers. There is no reason not to go out and support a cause that you agree with. Something like Occupy Congress, something like End the Damn Wars, something like Free Julian Assange. You have to be able to see through the propaganda. You have to be able to disseminate it. You have to be able to see it objectively. And you have to eliminate from your circle or try to change the minds of the people that have been propagandized against these real actions that can cause real change. They should not have been supporting Nancy Pelosi in the first place. If you get into Congress and you say, I'm against the corporate capture of our government, and I'm here to shake up the system, why? Why would they support Nancy Pelosi, who got rich off of being Speaker of the House and controlling the purse, who's a $100 millionaire with all kinds of shady stock deals with her and her husband, trading on insider information? If that's your mama bear, if that's your best friend when you get in there, then you are not on our side. And any organization that tries to tell you that they are is lying to you, and they're trying to corral you and neuter you and render you ineffective. So find better leaders. I'll get into Obama the next time, and thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate it. I'm trying to curate the content a little bit better. Still, a little bit clunky with these presentations, but I find time in between work and family life to get on here, and we gotta figure out what we're gonna do. We gotta find ways to connect, and we gotta find ways to remain principled when we do actually grow and gain power, because there's a lot of little weasels that are gonna worm their way in there if we start something, a movement that starts to grow. One is just the establishment is terrified and afraid of any populist movement that rises up and threatens their power. And they're greedy. They don't want to even give a little bit to people, but they'll give everything to war. This is the cost of war. And I was going to show that the wars that AOC voted for, the wars that almost every single person in our government votes for. I am 100% in favor of voting them all out. Primary, every single person, because there's this nepotism in the government, and it's disgusting. It's like giving a bunch of money to a rich kid and watching them squander the family fortune. That kind of energy is what propels most of our government. And like that leader of Rome, Honorius, who was more upset about the potential injury to his favorite chicken than he was the fall of the city he was supposed to protect. These are the kinds of leaders that we have in this country now. So the costs of war, all told, between 480,000 and 507,000 people have been killed in the United States post 9/11 wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Osama bin Laden, the Taliban offered to hand him over to us if we would stop bombing their country, and we refused. There's no reason for us to have been there even for one day. But there is a reason, and the reason is they wanted to make a ton of fucking money. So now private sector is outspending defense contractors in research and development for the US military. Companies like Amazon, Alphabet, Intel, Microsoft, Apple, Boeing, United Technologies, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon. These companies are making a killing, and they are donating to the person who's supposed to be our progressive champion. AOC, second largest donator, is Alphabet Inc., and she voted for war. She voted for police funding. She went to the Met Gala in an expensive dress while people, Black Lives Matter protesters, protesting a police killing, were being brutalized. So I'm going to come back next time and talk about Obama and how he pokes his head up to also stop any real change that threatens the establishment. Um, and he's just another lawyer president, really good at speaking a bunch of word salad, meaningless bullshit. So these people are your enemies. Do not trust them. Do not listen to them. Do not vote for them. Do not donate to them. You will be wasting your money and your energy, and they will sell you out at the drop of a hat. So, I gotta get ready to go to work. And I want to, I do want to give some hope. I mean, there's so much stuff to be discouraged about. There's so much to be frustrated about, but there are people out there that are doing things. I am a supporter of Movement for a People's Party. I think next time I'm going to read a little parable that Rodrigo Brana wrote. And maybe I'll play a little bit of the interview with him at Occupy Congress. But there are things you can do. Volunteer for your local legal aid society. You can help them paralegals process paperwork so that they can get some of this funding to people facing eviction before the federal government actually strips it away from states that are not processing the paperwork quickly enough. There is a massive eviction crisis on the horizon. It's not going away. I mean, this 24-hour news cycle really fucks everybody's head up because you just focus on one issue for a day and then you're just looking for the next new issue the next day. But we got to stick with certain things. And the eviction crisis is something, it's a worthy cause to stick to. I'm going to play a TikTok video. Somebody sent me in the chat. J Miles 338, if you're still there, I'll go ahead and play your video. And then I'll go get ready for work. Next time, we're going to talk about, let's see, what do we title the next stream? Let's see. So, Obama, the killer of progressive causes. I don't know. I'll come up with something better than that. But let's go a little bit through Obama's history, the people that he was listening to while he was running, and then the people that he chose to listen to after he got into power, and how he caused the rise of Donald Trump and all of this uh, just ugly stuff that we see on the right. Sorry to generalize, and I am not. I am not against. I'm not on the right. Uh, I'm. I guess was going to say I'm not on the right or the left, but like I'm. I am. I try to remain independent. I try to remain objective. I believe mostly in progressive values. And I think that the people can get together, just like Fred Hampton for civil rights. He united white people and black people and didn't care about identity politics. He wanted to achieve a cause. I believe in Medicare for all. I believe in a living wage. And I believe that we need to do something about the climate disaster and all the pollution that is caused. There is a really good video. It's a really good documentary. It's called Planet of the Humans. So even in these causes, and that's the central focus of this show is that there are these insidious, insidious. I don't know what the word is. Like there are people that worm their way into good causes and corrupt them. Even in the activist movement for fighting against pollution of our environment and climate change. There's a movie called Planet of the Humans that is really good because it talks about how a lot of these things that we pour money into don't work, and also how a lot of these activists are making a killing, they're making a ton of money, and they're not really doing much for the environment. How transitioning to fossil fuels to things where I don't know exactly remember the term, but it's where they burn trees essentially to create energy. How that is just destroying forests, and these causes get corrupted, they get co-opted, and we have to just be very careful. It's very hard to comb through all of the little details when it comes down to these people who present themselves as heroes and doing something good, and to find out, unfortunately, at the end of the day, that they had ulterior motives for what they were doing. But we need to expose that. We need to stay vigilant, and we need to come together and get out there on the street. It's the time for it because this empire looks just like Rome did when it fell. So, what are we going to do? I'm not saying that the country's going to fall tomorrow, but I am saying that we have reached a point where the divide is too large and the greed is too excessive, and something has to be done. Something has to be done. And we're not going to get it done with these feckless leaders that give lip service to change, but just serve their own fucking interests. All right. Tried to end it on a happy note, but I honestly couldn't get there. And I'm trying, J Miles, I'm trying to click your video and actually, oh, there it is. All right. I don't have a TikTok account, but let's see.
If you were to die right now, where would you think you would go? Would you be in heaven with the Lord, or would you be in hell suffering? None of us are perfect. None of us deserve to go to heaven. But God died for us so we can get a chance to go to heaven and not hell. Be in heaven with the Lord, or would you be in hell suffering? None of us are perfect. People choose Satan just to get money and fame and all these nice things. But I don't know why people choose Satan just to get money and fame and all these nice things. But one day we're all gonna die, and we're gonna stand before God, and He's gonna judge us. And He's gonna ask you what you done for Him. But then you realize you never did anything for Him. Hell isn't a joke, it's so bad. Demons are gonna torture you, you're gonna be burned, you're gonna be stabbed, you're gonna be raped, you're gonna be whipped. You can't even cry for help. No one can save you. Imagine how hot hell is. You can't even put your hand on a stove maximum hot for 5 to 10 seconds. Imagine that, but hotter and all over your body. I'm not joking. God died for us for a reason. If you were to die right now, where would
you... that sounds like me when I was a kid. I saw my friends playing, watching the Power Rangers, and I thought they were involved in witchcraft. I have studied theology. I have read Augustine and C.S. Lewis and Origen, or however you pronounce his name. I have studied the Bible. I did a lot of that while I was in prison. And ultimately, at the end of the day, while I think there are some good things that you can gain from that religion and others, and I am honestly a big fan of the Lakota prayer ceremonies and that type of spirituality that worships, or not worships, reveres and gives reverence to the powers of the earth and the powers that we see around us, and also Wakantanka, which is the great mystery, or the thing that flows through all things. But there's no dogma there, or at least not that I saw and not that I believe in and follow. And I'm not a fan of dogma, because religion ultimately becomes a mechanism of control for people. We all want something to believe in, but no one has come back from the dead and told us what we see on the other side. I do believe that there is a spirituality that runs through the world, things like the universal consciousness that Carl Jung talked about. And I think that the idea of a physical God, like a big man sitting up in the sky, is just a sort of a system of control. I don't know how else to say it. It's invented, it's made up. It is, I think, if there is a God, it's incomprehensible to us and indescribable, and it's more like an energy that flows through all of us. So, there's a good Bill Hicks quote that, let's see, he talked about people on acid. He's talking about, hey, the news is always so depressing, so what if there was a news story where that said, hey, one day a young man on acid realized that all matter is purely energy condensed into a slow vibration, that we're all one consciousness, subjectively experiencing life that there is no death, that life is all a dream, and we're the imagination of ourselves. That kind of that kind of language and that kind of thinking is where I'm more aligned with. I don't believe that there was a man. There may be a man that lived and called himself Jesus or Yeshua, which was a very common name at the time in Nazareth, I guess. But and there was a teacher, or maybe many teachers, that took his moniker and put together these texts that were carefully selected. So there are a lot of Gnostic texts that are not allowed into the Bible, and they have a curated narrative. They say it's supposedly all because of God. Um, he preordained that, and the people anointed by God, they put it together. But I don't judge anyone that's a Christian. I don't judge you if you're a Christian, if you're a believer. God bless you, and I support you if you are truly following in Jesus, or the Jesus of the Bible's footsteps. But I know in the Bible there are things that are anti-gay, and that is not something that I'm on board with either. I would call myself on the left because I believe in personal freedom. I don't believe in authoritarian policies. I don't believe in us looking at other people and condemning them for their personal actions that don't affect us directly. So, in that sense, I may be even more so on the libertarian side of things. So, my ideology and my spirituality touches a lot of different points. And I think it's important for us to find commonality with each other in certain causes. You really have to take it back to something as basic as this. There's two classes in society. There's the patricians. They're the descendants of the most ancient and powerful and noble families. That's exactly how it's going on here in this country. There are powerful, ancient, noble families. They're landowners. Bill Gates is buying up all the farmland in the United States. They seek to monopolize and control all power, and they won't give up an inch for anybody. They think they're gods. A lot of them are very hubristic people, and their spirituality, if they claim to have it, is complete bullshit. So, you know what Jesus said about the rich? It's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for the rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And the concept of the kingdom of heaven is also a very beautiful thing, too. Here on earth, building a kingdom of people who are like minded, and living in community with them and sharing everything. That doesn't look anything like what most fundamentalist Christians believe, or these people who believe in the prosperity gospel. I don't know if you sent me that clip as a joke. I don't know if it was serious, but one way or the other, I do appreciate you if you have strong spiritual beliefs, and I encourage you to read Matthew 22 and 23. Good night, everybody. Have a wonderful day, evening, and treat each other well. Treat your neighbor as yourself, and I don't I don't support any religions. Sorry, and I don't believe that we're going to be judged after we die by some big man in the sky. That is just a way to decide what actions are allowed and what are not. And since there's not a lot of religion left in our society, it's kind of come down to celebrities and politicians to decide that for us. And I think that, like the title of my channel is, question authority, think for yourself. And fuck Timothy Leary for getting involved in the CIA. He's a piece of shit for doing that. But he did have some good ideas. There's really terrible people that can have great ideas, and there's really great people that can have some bad fucking ideas. Remain objective, keep your eyes open, and vote them all out. They're all fucking scumbags. Even if there's some collateral damage, it doesn't fucking matter. Vote those cocksuckers out of fucking office. Fuck them. Sorry for using that word if you're offended by it. What's the most aggressively insulting word that I can use for the people that lied directly to our faces? You wonder why this rage isn't, it isn't aimed at Republicans. It's not aimed at Donald Trump because they didn't fucking tell us they were on our side and then stab us in the goddamn back. So there you go. Have a good night. Bye, everybody. I gotta go to work. I think I'm already late. Peace, not war.